Some major changes announced today by the CDC and Governor Baker locally when it comes to masks and reopening. Of course, that's what we're going to talk about with Dr. Todd Ellerin, who is Director of Infectious Diseases at South Shore Health, and so much more. Doctor, as you know, the CDC says people who are fully vaccinated do not need to wear masks outside, except if they're in larger crowds and can't socially distance. Massachusetts taking that a step further, starting Friday, no masks outside. You don't need to wear them, regardless of vaccination status, as long as distancing is possible. Love to know your thoughts on this. Do you think one is going too far, not far enough? And let's talk about outdoor spread.
I'm impressed with Governor Baker and his team, coming up with the guidance that they did. I mean, the bottom line is less than 10% of transmissions occur outdoors. We know indoors is a much greater risk. So the truth is, whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated, if you're outdoors and can distance, you don't really need a mask. With that said, I think Dr. Walensky and her team from the CDC, she's incentivizing people to get the vaccine. And that's so important because the vaccine is so powerful, effective, and safe. So I think we're going in the right direction either way.
Dr. Ellerin, as we have reported, the timeline the state released today puts August 1st as the intended date for a wide reopening, which is a little more than 3 months from now. So break it down real quickly for us. What must people do? What must people not do in order to make that date possible? Or really, at this point, does it matter with nearly what, 40% of the state already having at least one dose?
And I do think it matters, and you know what I'm going to say. Vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. Please, for those who are vaccine hesitant, let's not wait for the studies to show us that those patients who are hospitalized in our intensive care unit and are dying are much more likely to have not received the vaccine. The vaccine is that protective. Let's not wait. Let's go out there. Please ask questions if you're concerned, and talk to your provider. That's probably the best person that can give you guidance. And of course, still masking is important indoors more than outdoors.
Doctor, what about the small number of people who are saying, I don't need my second dose, I'm protected, I don't want to get sick again if I get that? How long should they expect protection? And in the teleprompter, it says, what's your advice for them? We know what you're going to say, but we'd like to hear it anyway.
You do. For Pfizer and Moderna, those are the 2-dose vaccines. The second dose is very important. Now, if you get it 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks later, I don't think that's a big deal, but you have to get that second dose. That second dose gives you a big, robust neutralizing antibodies. Those are the key antibodies that really target the virus, don't allow it to enter the cell. So that second dose is important. Please get that. And we don't know how well one dose lasts. We don't know.
I can feel your energy. I can hear your enthusiasm. I don't want to knock it down, but I want to ask you because you know what? This is a worldwide issue, not just a Massachusetts or a New England or a country issue. We know that the crisis is unfolding in India right now. 350,000 new cases being reported each day after a recent surge in infections. Vaccination numbers by population much lower than in the United States. So how do you gauge what's going on there and the potential impact maybe here or worldwide or in the fight against COVID?
Yeah, Ed, that's real wisdom what you just said. What's happening in one part of the world obviously affects all of us. What's happening in India is tragic right now. And, it's a confluence of events, right? You're talking about variants that are surging, vaccines, in this case, a lack thereof. They're way behind where we are right now in the United States. Politics, the prime minister holding political rallies and, lots of people gathering. Also, lack of distancing and these relaxation of quarantine and distancing measures. And there's also a major religious event that's going on right now in near the Ganges, where millions of people, Hindus, are congregating. It's probably a combination of many of these things, but they're on fire right now, and we all have to help them around the world.
How does that impact us here, potentially?
Well, Maria, just remember what happened in Wuhan, which was much more contained. And then, where the world got to after that, now India is even in much worse shape.
Great point. Great point. Dr. Ellerin, it's great to see you. Thank you so much.